Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I am specifically interested in some issues, especially the issue of debt servicing. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, if you observe what is going on in some developing countries of the world or underdeveloped countries of the world, you realize that most of their strategic investment are not only managed by the creditors, but has been taken over by the government and authorities of that particular country issuing them credits. We should be very careful. Last year, our debt servicing was 3.something billion. Today is 6.something billion. In other words, there is a geometrical increase or multiplication of our debt servicing. We should be very careful with that. If care is not taken, there will be a time when some of our strategic GOEs may be taken over by some countries because of the level of debt, God forbid. Secondly, honorable colleagues, on the issue of oil theft, we are all aware that there is a failure on our security operatives. They don't have the capacity to safeguard the oil pipes. They don't have the capacity to stop the theft. So the most important thing, we should go back to the conventional way of doing it. In as much as it's giving us a result, we should employ the services of private security companies to do it for us. I have been saying it in this chamber that, Mr. Speaker, if we want the issue of insecurity in Nigeria to finish, we must contract foreign mercenaries to come and do the job for us. Complacency is what is happening in Nigeria. We are so complacent to the extent that we don't want to accept that we are failing, and we keep on failing. Look at what is happening to our revenue. Everybody knows this is not realistic. 1.6 million barrels is not realistic. We know it, you know it, and everybody knows. So investor will not be stupid enough to come to Nigeria and invest bearing in mind on a speculative or unpredictable budget estimate or assumptions. So, Mr. Chairman, we should do the needful, in as much as it will cost us some money to contract the services of a private companies or private security operatives to safeguard these pipes so that we can go back to our 2.2 million barrels per day. If that can give us a result, there's nothing wrong with that. We shouldn't be complacent. Roman used to be the greatest empire of the world, but because of complacency, Roman was destroyed by its complacency. In other words, we shouldn't be complacent. On the issue of revenue generation, Mr. Speaker, Mr. President made one statement, and I want every member of Parliament to bear this at the back of his mind, and I will read it if you permit. He said, "Distinguished senators, honorable members, you may recall that we earlier integrated the budget of government-owned enterprise into the federal government budget in 2019. This has helped to enhance the comprehensiveness and transparency of federal government budget. It has, however, come to my attention that government-owned enterprises liaise directly with relevant NAS committees to have their budget passed and issued to them directly." He went further to say that I would like to implore the leadership of the National Assembly to ensure that the budget I lay here today, which includes those of GOEs, be returned to the presidency when passed. In other words, for an assent. The current practice where some committees of the National Assembly purport to pass budget for GOEs which are at variance with the budget sanctioned by me and communicate such directly to the MDS as against the rules and need to stop. In other words, this is just an advice, not a directive. We should understand. And another thing, in as much as GOE's budget is presented alongside with federal government budget, then members or chairman of the committee should do the needful to make sure that there is transparency, there is no duplication of activity in one budget or the other belonging to GOE or any of the federal government MDA. In other words, I am urging my colleagues to understand why President is specifically in 2 different paragraphs about this issue of GOEs. Mr. Speaker, lastly, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, I want to commend the executive for at least putting 470 billion earmarked to resolve the crisis, particularly in our educational sector with regards to ASU. Mr. Speaker, we are all aware this money is grossly inadequate, but that does not mean it will not start the process, and it should be urgent. But there is a need for the House to look into this so that at the end of the day, we may end up having a result. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker. This is my position.
Thank you.